hospitality of the organization. And this is my second time to participate in this forum. And I'm really happy to be invited again, sitting in front of you again. And especially on this time topic, India-Pacific strategy dialogue. And now this year we have Indian participants as well, I understand. So this forum, trilateral forum, is actually trying to enlarge and put in the more contents into the dialogue itself, I understand. And also, well, I think the Honorable Chi Chen, am I pronouncing the name correct? Put very correct questions. This India-Pacific strategy actually started from Prime Minister Abe when he proposed this strategy at the TICAD 2012. But even before that, he had this idea of, in 2007, when Prime Minister Abe visited India, it was Prime Minister Modi's time, Shin's time, 2007, well, he proposed this idea of linking Indian Ocean to Pacific. Two maritime countries need to cooperate each other. And then even back then, before Prime Minister Aso's time, so it's much more earlier, Japan had this idea of arc of freedom and prosperity. So at that time, the idea was to let's connect the nations which shares our values, like democracies, rule of law, or human rights. What I want to emphasize here is, I think these strategies, ideas, whatever you call, is a response to rising China. China last year made a Mr. Xi Jinping made a very clear declaration in his Communist Party that, China is assuming to be a superpower in 2049, and by doing so, they want to modernize their military capability by 2035. So basically, if I make it very short, it's a concept of China 2049, and it doesn't say in that way, but I'm sure the United States understands the intention and Chinese projection direction very clearly. That's why I think the US made a report last year, National Security Strategy, which defines China and Russia as a revisionist power, and basically saying that US will compete with these two countries in technology to military capability to economy, and US try to stay in power. That's what I read. And what I want to say is this India-Pacific strategy, India-Pacific strategy, I'm really happy that US takes its own strategy. Now the Pacific Commander, before, the name has been changed to India-Pacific Commander. So it's very clear. And it's really important because this strategy is is to, one, try to influence, change Chinese behavior more favorable to the international existing order. Secondly, I think by networking through this strategy among nations, we want to protect ourselves. This is our security. This is our security policy. I think this is a very clear aim. And this time, India-Pacific strategy is not emphasizing democracies. It's more or less about geopolitical, I think, thinking. It's 3 points. One is about the freedom of navigation, number one. Number two is rule of law. Number three is connecting infrastructures. And you're perfectly right. We have to put content in it. Because even if you're just talking about the strategies thing, but don't see any concrete actions, then there is no content, there is no substance. And if unless we have substance, we cannot influence Chinese behavior, or not even to less protect ourselves. And I think especially the Chinese idea of one belt, one road, itself is a good idea. You want to have our economic relations with the all Eurasian countries, and And some part, I think I appreciate it even. But if you look at the maritime part, it's more worrisome. As Admiral pointed out, we see many militarization, unilateral militarization in South China Sea, and we see more influences in Pacific Islands, where before the war, Japan had this great prosperity sphere in Pacific, and we lost the war, and the vacancy was filled by the US. Now it's Chinese influence is much more visible in these Pacific Islands too. So, and if it is a benign one, beneficial to each country, that's fine. But it's not the case, unfortunately. Many countries actually thought that this is a wonderful offer from China, receives big grants, has to give up their ports, ending at 100 years lease, for example. This is just one example. And geography doesn't change. Japan sitting next to China. Japan does care good relation with China. We want to improve the relation with China. But if you look at the security, we have the trouble in the sea with China. It's I think it's true. And we are not, Japan does have no idea of compromising our sovereignty or the security issues. So we have to manage the relation. Japan has to manage the relation with China with diplomatic skills. At the same time, we have to be very clear about these, what we cannot compromise. And I think it's the same. Taiwan and Japan share a similar strategic interest in the sea. Taiwan and Japan are located on the first island chain, and de facto independent existence. And I want to be very, very clear. Politically, our policy is very consistent. We support one China policy. So I'm talking about de facto independent existence of Taiwan is security benefits of Japan. And we understand that. It is Chinese people, Taiwan people's choice for the future. We're not saying about that. But current situations, if you look at, I think it's really important for the US, Japan, Taiwan, or Australia, India, all countries which locate the sea lane coming up to the Indian Ocean to the African islands, needs to cooperate together to make sure the freedom of navigation and rule of law and our security, our lands will not be influenced in that way. So what is the role of this India-Pacific strategy? And I would like to say, we don't need to put formality so much into it. I know Taiwan has limitations, right? And Japan has some limitations. We have the very special constitution. And the US is the biggest, I think, the supporter of this. Unless we have US, this strategy is meaningless. So US is most important. And I'm really appreciating that US has put one, if I'm not correct, please check, I don't remember, but I think it was $12.5 billion US dollars for the funds for India-Pacific strategy. And also US recently increased the defense budget, which is also very good. And I think the relevant countries needs to work together to not making a formal meeting of this and that, but rather, for example, information sharing, or even the companies or private companies of, let's say, India, Australia, and Japan working together to make a co-investment in certain countries, for example, and then governments can support to make such deal easier. I think many ways the countries who supports this strategy can work together, and not only just government level, but private, or the conferences like this. So I think and then the other thing is, it's really important to keep moving on. This is the ongoing ideas. So it is very important to keep going, rather than focusing on just saying that we have contents or not. I think I want to point that out. And yep, I stop here. And yeah, lastly, the current US-China trade war is not just an economic competition. It's a struggle over hegemony. So I don't think it ends so easily, even though we see some deal. As long as the essence is the hegemonic competition, we have to really see that the countries has to watch over these, where it ends or where it goes, because geography doesn't change. And I stop here. Thank you.